All right, let's talk about something that feels a world away, but actually hits you right where it hurts, your wallet. We're going to trace a direct line from a conflict in the Middle East all the way to your bank account. Let's get into it.
So you're scrolling through the news, right? You see headlines about some conflict thousands of miles away, and it's so easy to just think, okay, that's over there. What does that have to do with me? Well, it turns out a lot. Because suddenly, the pain becomes very, very real. You feel it when you're filling up your car, you see it when you're checking out at the grocery store, and you definitely notice it when you open your utility bill. This isn't just a coincidence, folks. It's a direct economic chain reaction.
And that's because our global economy is way more tangled together than most of us realize. Economic shockwaves, they don't need a passport. They just travel instantly. So today, we're going to follow the path of one of these shockwaves step by step and see just how deep into our lives it really goes.
Okay, let's dive right in. This whole global drama, it all kicks off in one very specific, very tiny, but incredibly important spot on the map.
We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz. Now, if the world had a circulatory system, this would be its main artery for oil. It's this super narrow bottleneck, but it's the corridor for all those massive tankers shipping crude oil from the Persian Gulf out to, well, literally everyone else.
Just get a load of this number, 20%. A full fifth of all the oil the entire planet uses has to squeeze through this one tiny passage. When you have that much of a critical resource in one place, it's not just powerful, it's also incredibly, incredibly vulnerable.
So you can probably guess what happens next, right? When that critical choke point is threatened by conflict, boom, the very first shockwave smacks the price of oil, and it hits hard. The way it works is actually pretty simple, but the results, they're huge. Any disruption, heck, even just the threat of a disruption can jam up those shipping lanes. And when that happens, the global oil supply gets squeezed, like instantly. And we all know basic economics, right? Supply goes down, demand stays the same, prices go through the roof.
And listen, we're not talking about a few pennies here and there. This spike can be absolutely massive. You could see the price per barrel jump from maybe $80 to well over $100, maybe even $150. That isn't a ripple. That's a tsunami hitting the global energy market.
You really can't overstate how serious this is. One market analyst put it perfectly. They said a long conflict here could become the biggest disruption to the global oil market in history. Yeah, in history. This isn't just another blip on the news cycle. It's a potential record-shattering event.
But wait, because high oil prices are just the first domino to fall. That initial shock, it doesn't just stay in the energy sector, no way. It sets off a much, much bigger economic chain reaction that snakes its way through the entire global system.
So, here's how those dominoes tumble. First, energy costs go nuts. Then, think about it. Pretty much every single business needs energy and transportation, right? So their costs go up. And what do? They pass those costs on to us. That's inflation. And finally, when we're all paying more for the basics, we stop buying other stuff, and the whole global economy just starts to pump the brakes.
And this disruption just keeps spreading. Global supply chains get totally tangled up. Shipping insurance, the costs for that go through the roof. The financial markets, they hate uncertainties, so they get super volatile. Businesses start getting spooked, so they put big investments on hold. And all of this together, it seriously dials up the risk of a full-blown global recession.
Now, what's interesting is that this economic pain, it's not shared equally. Not at all. You've got places that import a ton of energy, like in Europe and Asia. They're on the front lines, super vulnerable to these price shocks. But then you have big energy producers, like the United States. They've got this built-in cushion, you know? It shields them from the worst of it.
Okay, so we've followed this shockwave as it's bounced across the globe. Now, let's bring it all the way back home. Let's talk about how this whole crisis actually lands smack in the middle of your budget.
And this is where it gets personal. You feel it directly. First, it's at the gas station. Then, it's your grocery receipt. Because guess what? It costs more to grow and ship that food. Your electric bill, your heating bill, they creep up. And then, to top it all off, when central banks start raising interest rates to fight that inflation, your mortgage and other loan payments can go up too. It's like an attack on your wallet from every direction.
And there you have it. That's the final link in the chain. A conflict that's happening thousands of miles away sends a ripple that travels across the world and ends up shaking your personal finances.
It's really the perfect example of a huge lesson in our modern world. Geopolitical conflicts don't stay local, they become global through the economy.
In a system this connected, nothing is truly isolated anymore. The economy is like the wire that carries the shock from one corner of the globe to absolutely everyone else.
So, if there's one thing to remember from all this, it's this. Energy is literally the lifeblood of the global economy. It's the main highway that takes a regional political problem and turns it into a worldwide economic crisis. When that energy flow is threatened, believe me, everything feels it.
And all this leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. In a world that's so tightly knitted together by trade and finance and energy, can we really ever say that a crisis over there has nothing to do with us over here? I think what we've walked through today shows that the answer is a pretty clear no.